Alrighty, so this is a paper about a qualitative study examining the lived experiences of stress among female sexual assault survivors in an 8-week trauma-sensitive intervention. So this paper is by Nicole Nicotera, Megan Connolly, Jenna Jaudat, and Laura Ostro, and the presentation is by myself, Janika Wilson. So, to introduce the topic, researchers discuss how survivors and victims of sexual assault are often left with somatic dominant symptoms that often lead to a post traumatic stress disorder. So, this diagnosis usually leads people to seek some kind of treatment or coping mechanism. And research shows that trauma sensitive yoga is a somatic intervention that can help with these coping skills. So the study kind of is able to add to a breadth of research about how yoga can be a coping intervention for PTSD survivors, specifically of sexual assault. So when we look at the philosophical worldview that the researchers hold in this paper, this one quote kind of shows their orientation, and it says that they identify as cisgendered women and feminists who consider misogyny to be the root of violence against women. So within this statement, we can see that they advocate for marginalized communities and they identify that they're feminist. And this leads readers to consider this might be a transformative worldview. So, in turn, they chose to study stress in terms of a subjective experience to reflect this. And this is because transformative worldviews focus on the experiences of participants. Thus, they used a qualitative approach, which included the narratives of survivors through open ended questions, making this a phenomenological research design. So, their research question is how do sexual assault survivors describe their experiences of stress while participating in the trauma informed yoga therapy intervention? So, they recruited participants because they were doing this class in a sexual assault um, facility that had a lot of women who were looking for coping strategies and assistance. And they recruited 28 participants with an average age of 29. So 78.6% of these participants were white, 10.7% were multiracial, and 7.1% were Latina. And we can see that 3.9% actually didn't report any ethnicity or racial identities. So within the participants, everyone in the study is technically in the second group here of assault and sexual survivors. And they were in the same yoga class as, you could say, a control group who were not really there for the same reasons, perhaps. They were just there to practice yoga for exercise, and their experiences and narratives were not recorded. So during the 8 sessions, each session consisted of a pre-session, which was a verbal check-in, as well as a worksheet that participants filled out. And these sheets often had some discussion about the themes of that class. So each of the 8 sessions had one theme. So some examples of this were self-reflection, making choices, and exploring the breath. Afterwards, they do their 1 hour yoga practice full of postures, meditation, and breath work. And at the end of this session, they would do another checkout, and that included a worksheet and a verbal discussion. So their method of analysis was in vivo coding. So they used this to emphasize the spoken word of participants, which helped researchers to identify certain words and phrases that related to the cultural phenomenon that they're studying. And they were able to apply some codes and labels to these concepts and themes that they found. And this led researchers to find 3 umbrella terms, which were stress, sense of well being, and group effects. So within that, they saw that when speaking about stress in the pre-session check-ins, you could see that they were identifying a lot of stress pileup, while in the pre-session and post-session, you can see that they are able to identify the type of stress that they're experiencing, leading to increased awareness per se. So, and we can also see that as self of well-being. We can see that pre-session, they felt like they're putting themselves in the scenario where they felt like they were practicing self-care, and this made them feel really good. However, during the session, we could see that they identified coping as a theme that was present during the duration of the study. Lastly, group effects, which could only be tested at the end, identified that there were some awareness about triggers, their ability to be triggered in groups, and the fact that they were not triggered in this group, making it truly a trauma-sensitive intervention. So just to go over the results quickly, this led to an increased awareness in self-care, stress, and well-being, while also allowing participants to feel good, relaxed, and less resistant towards the stress and the challenges that they're facing in relation to that. So some ethical considerations that I thought were relevant were the fact that their transformative worldview or philosophical worldview allowed them to add to research about a social justice movement. I think that they're able to minimize harm by providing a trauma-sensitive class and providing a service that has been tested to be effective for PTSD and survivors. And I also think that they considered the competence of everyone who participated in the research, in that everyone had the necessary competency to fulfill their roles. So they did have a certified yoga teacher and a qualitative research specialist.